Welcome to the podcast. We're so glad you're here. Has this ever sounded like you? Maybe you are a wife who is has a lot of things going on at home, but then there's some issue that comes up, something that is on your heart and mind that you need to share with your husband. And your husband, and you're the husband, right? And you're running around, shuttling the kids, picking them up from school, maybe helping them, whatever you're doing. Your life is busy, or just stuff in life. And when your wife reached out for to share with you, you thought it was some logistical thing she wanted to talk about, and so you really didn't have time for it.
Maybe she has some strong emotions going on.
That's something going on, and maybe it didn't have anything to do with you per se, but when you kind of dismissed her a little bit, you didn't really respond and stop and listen to her.
You didn't have time.
You felt, because we're so freaking busy, right? And then that wife feels hurt and draws back, right? And then later on, you come home as the husband and you forgot something that you were supposed to pick up at the store, or some kid that you were supposed to pick up. And then she is upset, but she actually acts out more than she would have normally done because she already was feeling hurt, and she hadn't had time because she herself was busy to process what happened before, that she felt kind of rejected. And so now he's feeling criticized,
right?
And he grumbles off, and he's kind of self-condemned, like, oh, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot blank. And he's like, but why is she attacking me so much? Doesn't she see all the stuff that I do?
And she's thinking, and mom is thinking, doesn't he care about me? Doesn't he see what I'm doing? He never listens to me. He never has time for me. You see, it's just like this spiraling of a lack of communication. And that's what we need to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about today, and to kind of show you what are the dangers of that lack of communication and why it's so important and what you can do about it. And we're talking about this in our series about belonging in marriage, that we're continuing to really focus on marriage and why belonging in marriage is so important, and why your marriage and the health of your marriage is really key, not just for your happiness and the happiness of your children, but really for everyone in the world. All
right. So before we get into that topic more fully, we really are excited because what we are in the midst of, or coming up to very quickly, is Lent. And Lent is a great time of year to...
We're so excited about Lent.
Because there's so many fun things to do. Because as Catholics, we get to celebrate. I mean, yes, it is a penitential season. Yes, there's a lot, but we want to invite you in a new way.
Yeah.
We have been doing Cana 90 for 5+ years now, I think.
More than that.
And thousands of couples go through this program every Lent, and it's really a beautiful program. But we've started something special called the Cana 90 Fellowship.
Right.
And this is for married couples through Lent and into Easter, where we journey together with a smaller group. And we have some live interactions from both Alicia and I, but also a small community where we can comment and interact. And we share some additional resources on overcoming some of the vices in family life, and how to build more virtue, and how to instill a Catholic family culture in your home, and lots of other great resources.
Yeah. And we really would love everybody to join us. And first of all, I think it's a great way of showing your commitment to your personal growth as a mom or a dad, as a husband or a wife this Lent, but also it really supports us. It supports our ministry.
Yes.
If you want to join us for those 3 months for $99, or you can become a member and a part of the Messy Family Neighborhood and the fellowship, and continue journeying, allow us to journey with you throughout the whole year. Right. And that becoming a member of our neighborhood gives you access to exclusive date nights, to ongoing mom circles, to more resources, all of those kinds of things. And we're really, every year, we're adding more and more to our neighborhood, and it's becoming more and more active. So please come and check it out. Support us, but also more importantly, support yourself in this journey through Lent.
Yeah, what would we do to invest in your marriage, in your family life? Take some time to make that happen.
Yeah.
And you could support a great mission of serving other families, but also be a great opportunity for you to grow yourself personally in your marriage and your vocation as leading in the home. Other thing is that this is a podcast. If today's podcast or this podcast in general has been a gift to you, subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss out, and then share with friends. And this is something that it actually, when you do that, when you subscribe to the podcast, when you share it with somebody else, or even better, you put a review or rating, whether it be on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to your podcast, that actually helps more people find this podcast.
Right.
And so your simple little action actually helps spur other families to find our resources.
Everything that everywhere we've gotten has been because of our listeners. So we need you to continue, especially if you're a new listener and you haven't done any of that yet. It really, really and truly helps us out so much.
That's great.
All right. So let's get into helping you.
All right. So we're talking about communication in a frantic family, and kind of the scenario we started with may or may not have been from actual experiences from the Hernan family and or people that we know, right?
It's so funny when we were thinking about our fights. We need to literally start writing down when we fight, because guys, we don't always think about them, but I'm telling you, we fight. Well, get into a conflict once a week
right
or
before we do a podcast.
No. It definitely happens. It's definitely something that we are growing.
We've become really good at it.
It's because of our personality types too. I think we're more like, it's very hard for either of us to keep anything inside.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, we need to remember these fights and write them down so we can use them as examples for you.
Yeah, because we are great examples of messy communications.
Yes,
right?
yes. But we're better. We're so much better. We are so much better than we were 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And we just want to share with you some of the things that we've learned, kind of guided by some great research. But all the research that we give you it just simply affirms what we have already experienced just by practicing it, but the research is helpful because we're like, it's not just us, right? There's other people that experience this.
And what we're going to talk about today is really from a really heavily researched principles. Mm-hmm. But we try to always keep it into our lived experience and those that we see around us, because at the heart of your marriage, at the heart of belonging for you as a married person, is communication. We were just talking about, I'm like, I don't think anything else in marriage will work without communication. And at the very core, right? For those who are in the know, right? We always talk about that man was made for communion, was made for community, was made for others, right? We're not made to be alone as individuals. Well, that's at the heart of communication, is communing, connecting, collaborating. It's like this communication is the only thing. Like if you think about it in some ways, it's like good sex, right? In that, we contribute one part of it, but without the other part, it actually means nothing. Mm-hmm. Because
you need two people to communicate.
Yeah, you need two people to communicate, because you're sending and you're receiving. And then there's a third entity, that which is it between you, the message itself that's exchanged.
Right.
And there's something beautiful and potent about that, but that makes up so many interactions, more than just verbal, right? We don't limit this purely to verbal, because communication is heavily seen in verbal, but it's not exclusively that. It's about all these ways that we relate and communicate and connect to each other, which is foundational and pivotal to a good marriage.
Because as we were getting ready for this podcast, we were thinking, without communication, your physical intimacy doesn't work.
Yes.
Your praying together doesn't work. Your teamwork within the house doesn't work.
Yeah. Figuring out budgets and plans and
you need to be skilled at communicating, and you need to have open lines of communication for any of that to really and truly be effective. So this is a skill that is really kind of above all others. And because those daily interactions, how you relate back and forth with your spouse, that really determines the health of your relationship.
100%.
Because when you communicate better, then you can have greater physical intimacy. You can have greater teamwork. You can pray together better. Everything else works better when you communicate. So that's why this is so important to your growth as a couple, because it's like that the stronger threads you have, the stronger connections that you have, your marriage is going to grow. Your marriage, that third entity, is going to be stronger.
And in spite of what, you may think you want, you can't read your spouse's mind.
Yeah.
And that goes both ways.
This is why you have to communicate.
Right. It goes both ways, meaning I don't know what you're thinking.
Right.
As well as I need to share with you what's going on in my heart, in my mind, in my life, what's going on in my experience right now.
Right.
And all of that is essential. It actually sounded like, oh, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great early on, particularly?
What women want, like that movie.
I know. Mel Gibson. I'm like, this would be great. And then
At the beginning, he thought it was great.
And then he thought, oh my gosh, this is a curse.
This is like, overwhelming.
It's too much. Yeah. But then also in doing that, it removes the desire, because the desire to communicate, at the heart of it, it's about getting to know somebody, and it's about knowing yourself. It's about growth, because as we kind of said before, there's no growth that is possible without communication. And at the heart of it, you don't want to just read someone's mind. You want both the gift and the giver to have action involved. That's what love really is. Love is that part of the equation.
And the real danger of not communicating, and this is what I think that we fall into, or I shouldn't say I fall into this a lot, is making the assumption that I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
I know what you're going to think, or I know what your motivation is. See, because I have a strong belief system. And so a lot of times if I see you saying something or doing something, I assume that you are... I assume that you're doing something for a certain reason, or I assume you know what I assume sometimes you already know where I'm at. You can perceive that I'm frustrated, not at you.
Did you see that I was already doing blank, 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 or that I was already mad about something else? Or
Exactly. And that lack of communication and making assumptions really leads to a lot of relationship difficulties, basically. Yeah. I mean, we just recently.
Well, yeah. So I was. This is funny, but it ended up being. It's about something nonsensical.
This was our last, probably larger fight. I think that happened around.
And again,
Christmas.
Most of our big fights are about nothing. But and this is where that assumption comes in, right? I was working on a project. I was creating something on the computer. It was for a Christmas gift, and it was so frustrating. It was taking me a long time.
You were using AI.
I was using some AI. I was using some graphic stuff, and it was just that it was challenging for me. So in part was good, and part of it was just like, this is just taking much longer than I thought it would.
Right.
And I, at that point, was probably blinded by the fact that I'd been working so hard that I was just looking for approval. And this was like this was a couple weeks before Christmas. No, a couple days.
A couple days before Christmas, which this is like, like crunch time, everybody.
Yes.
These are things that we got to get done. We have like very little time, and we had a lot of travel coming up. And so I really needed this to be done quickly. And I had tried to do it, and I was getting frustrated. And so of course I give it to Mike, and
Exactly.
I think he can do everything perfectly. So I'm like, here you go. But then when I came in, he had been working on this for 3 hours, and he was like, showed me what he did.
And I was really happy.
And I was like,
oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah, he was. And when I walked in, and I was like, that's not what I wanted at all. And I was frustrated because I knew he had spent so much time. And so I almost was frustrated for him.
Right. But all I received was frustration and criticism and blah, 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 or whatever. Right. And all that I heard was, she knows how hard I've been working. She knows that I've been frustrated, and I started to protect myself, and I lashed out at her, not seeing behind what I heard that she is frustrated alongside me.
And maybe also there was also some criticism in me of this isn't what I asked you for. Remember, we had talked about this before. This was supposed to look like this, and now it looks like this.
But my first reaction was, I know exactly why she is saying this.
Yeah.
Because what I did in her eyes sucks. And and not only is this job of, I am a failure, might as well just quit right now. Forget it. She doesn't appreciate you or anything you do.
And then when I was trying to give input about the project, then he was just like, forget it. Just walk away. Just forget it. Yes. I can't talk about this anymore.
Because I was at that point where my emotions were at a point where I knew this isn't going to go well. And it was ceasing to be helpful because we'd already kind of made those positions.
I was so afraid of like leaving without giving him input because I was like, what if he spends another 3 hours and makes something that I still don't like? Then we're really up a creek. And then what are we going to do? You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, but it was a lot of hurt feelings, and both of us were angry and both of us were frustrated. And at first I was like, I'm not attacking you, but there was blah, 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 or whatever. So we were kind of going round and round, and it was like a couple hours. I don't know. And then
there was
not a couple hours argument, but there was like,
no, there was that spat,
tension.
and then there was tension, and it was never really resolved until much later.
Right.
And then it was like, okay.
Right.
And also too,
we need to go back and talk about this.
It happened to be around the holidays. Anybody relate to that? You know, a little tension going on in the holidays, a little higher stress level, a little out of the ordinary, a little out of our routine.
Yeah.
But what we needed was to recognize what was actually going on. And we were kind of missing each other in our communication.
And I think we both had, I remember that time feeling a lot of emotion.
Yes.
And feeling a lot of emotion, a lot of frustration. Not necessarily with you, but with the whole stupid AI.
But I was part of that whole thing, and it. Anyway, so what we want to do now.
By the way, all the people who are afraid AI is going to overtake the world, I don't know. Maybe that'll happen eventually. From our experience, it's like you have to be so specific. You got to be so clear because it cannot come up with. It can't read your mind.
No,
at least not yet.
and the end product.
Was great. The end product was great.
The end product was great. And it wasn't just that I made a great customized personal cartoon version of Guess Who game, but it was our relationship was renewed and restored. But it took a little bit to get there, right? But now we are definitely better at the quicker repair. But even in the midst of that, I think we're pretty good communicators.
Well,
we still stumble, we still fall, and it's okay. But it's not so much how often you fall as much as how quickly you get to repair and be aware of things.
And that's what I want people to know when we're talking about communication is that this is a journey that we are still on, and even like this year, we've talked about how do we get to the point where we're not having that kind of conflict? You know, like how can we control our emotions or be aware of the flooding or be aware of how I'm coming off before it happens and not just repair. So that's like kind of like our next level of relationship is how can we like get to that greater place to not just avoid conflict, but prevent any hurt feelings, prevent the four things that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, we're talking four big things. And at the very end, you'll want to make sure you stay tuned, if you will, because we go into ways to prevent that, to set yourself up for ongoing success in communications. I mean, this is not, this is definitely taking your marriage to the next level, and it's
100%.
And so first we're going to point out four big ways that are pitfalls and snares in communication, in marriage. But then we're also going to give you some very practical ways of not just repairing, which we've talked about before, but really preventative and creating a solid foundation.
And good communication skills.
Right.
All right. So this is the part where we got our little bit of research from that, and we're going to point you to some other resources, is the Gottman Institute talks about the 4 big predictors of divorce, and John Gottman calls them the 4 horsemen.
Yeah, like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Like think of them riding in to destroy, right?
The apocalypse of your marriage. And that is the case if you allow these to continue without any repair, without any acknowledgement that this is not healthy. Right. And so that's what we want to do.
One instance of these is not death.
Totally.
But it's a pattern, a negative pattern in these.
Right.
4
and
areas.
we want to point them out because we want you to see these are not normal. They are not right. These 4 things should not be a part of your relationship. And when they come, you see them coming into your relationship, you need to repair them. You need to stop doing that and go back and repair. Yeah, you need to root it out, especially. So I guess that there's some things that can happen, but they are not a habit. Yeah. And so these things happen to us, but they are not habits in our relationship. If you are listening to us and you're saying to yourself, oh my gosh, this is a habit in our relationship, you got to stop it. Yeah. Because they are really detrimental.
And we have seen and known couples personally who have incorporated these as habits, and they have recovered.
They've rooted them out.
The longer you attach, the harder it is to get out. But it is, and Gottman points to this, right? The research points to when you can recognize these four horsemen and root them out, repent and root them out of your marriage and create better patterns for relating and communicating, you can make it work.
Right.
All right. First horseman, big major pitfall for your marriage is criticism. We actually have a whole podcast on criticism and
criticizing your spouse.
Yeah. And the destruction that happens there. But criticism is attacking your spouse's character rather than expressing something that you need, emotional or otherwise, right? It's saying things are their fault. It is pointing to them and recognizing that they, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that they are the problem, as opposed to recognizing that there's something that is within you that you are likely reacting to.
So for example, like with that whole like project that Mike was working on, not that I said this, but if I were to come in and what I've said something like, I can't believe this is taking you this long. Can't you figure this out? Like kind of like, what's your problem? Like you are the problem, instead of just recognizing that this is just so frustrating,
Right.
Is there anything I can do to help you or, whatever. But I feel like so criticizing is when your spouse does something and it elicits a reaction in you and you attack them. Okay. So if you see criticizing as attacking and just to recognize that motivation to attack or to react, 90% of the time, it is actually not really about whatever your spouse just did. Right. Your spouse, whatever they did, they probably almost definitely did not do it to annoy you. You're attacking because of something in you.
Right.
You're attacking
something
them
going on in your heart
because there is some unresolved issue in your heart that is making you scared, that is making you angry, that is like something is rising up in you as a reaction. And I use that reaction word like really specifically, like I'm reacting and so I have to attack them.
Right. You're lashing out.
You're lashing out, not at the situation, but at them personally.
Right. And you may not fully intend that, but that's what's happening. I think people who are criticizing wouldn't say that they're criticizing the person. I think that they would often say, well, I'm looking at this. I'm looking, or I'm just trying to make it better. I have a higher standard, are you criticizing them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you looking at them and putting them in a box somehow, right? You always do blank, blank, blank. You never blank. Do those words elicit? Because again, on that person, it'll elicit another action, and we'll get to some of the other four horsemen. But that is a potency that is deadly for your marriage when you do that. When and particularly when we talk about criticizing, doing that in public, in front of peers or in front of their colleagues at work.
Oh my gosh!
It is so deadly. It is so hard for someone to receive that they could shrivel up. I mean, there is almost, again, if it's perpetual or consistent and habitual, it is a death knell for your relationship.
And I think that criticizing is definitely one of the four horsemen. That's a temptation more for people who are sanguine or choleric. Because it's kind of like that attacking reaction.
It's more active, more external.
Yeah. So I think that just to be aware of that, if that's your personality, you may tend to kind of go in this direction. And I think that even so that, yes, I think criticizing your spouse, but even I think that there's a soft way of criticizing your spouse that's still wrong. Yeah. If they say something like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I think that we've gone to the beach every year for the past 5 years. And it's like, that's innocuous, right? Who cares? And then you say, oh no, what are you talking about? We not go that much. We don't go maybe 3 times. Do you hear that? Like that is basically criticizing them. That's kind of subtly saying you don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot. You are wrong. I am right. And there's
That's it, though.
reason.
That's what criticism does. It says, I'm wrong, or I'm right, you're wrong.
And I think that there's, especially in something that's like I said, like as innocuous as that, it's like there's no reason for that. Even if in your mind, you're like, I know we only went 2 times.
Right.
Who cares?
Yes.
Don't say anything.
Yes.
Just shut up about it. Like, because it's not worth it.
If it's not a moral issue, who cares?
Yes, exactly. And then even if it's something that like you do think is really important, or maybe they're misquoting someone, right? Or saying a fact that you're like, I don't think that that's true. You could even say, you know what? There's a way, and I've seen women do this, and it is so skillful and humble, not in a way that's like,
self-deprecating,
manipulative, but just they honestly saying very humbly, oh, I didn't realize that person said that. Like I always thought that this person said, I always thought that like President Roosevelt or President Washington, whatever. I always thought this other person said that. So I didn't know that was true. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like leaving that openness to, you know what, maybe you could be right. This is the one thing my mom said at the beginning of her marriage. I remember her saying, yes, I just learned to say when we were in arguments, well, you could be right. Like, all right. Like, so if you are really
and that's a hard thing to say. It's a very humble thing to say.
Yeah. Like if you are that kind of person that is always a truth seeker or truth speaker, and you're like, no, it's black and white. You have to say the right thing all the time. It's like, well, wait a second. There's a possibility that you're wrong. And it's a possibility that your spouse is correct. So just say, well, you could be right.
Right. And doing it in such a way that you're not saying it like, oh, well, you could be right, or whatever. Yeah, like there's ways that you're communicating things, because at the end of it, the antidote for criticism, instead of pointing fingers at the other, it's as simple I statements, right? We hear this all the time. Instead of saying, you do this, you do that, you never do this, you always say, hey, I felt this way, or I, express your need, not about a manipulative and say, I'll use that example. It's like, I was looking for appreciation and I don't feel like I got it.
Mm-hmm. Or even like when I was coming in and you were like taking so much time, I would say, I'm so sorry that this is taking you so long. That must be really frustrating. Or I was really hoping that this would be done. I was really hoping this would be done sooner. Is there anything I can do to help you?
Right. And then we're on the team, right? And then again, it moves it from the you do this to an I, and even better, we, like standing shoulder to shoulder, looking out at this.
Right.
Can I go to the second one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yep. Second horseman here is defensiveness. I didn't want to be too defensive in taking that position, right? But again, this could be a reaction to criticism, could be a reaction to other things, but you're protecting yourself instead of engaging.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of engaging in that relationship, you're self-protecting, or you're playing the victim. Mm-hmm. And you're taking any expression of concern or questions like that was a perfectly very appropriate way to say something, right? Like, hey, I'm so frustrated, or I'm sorry it's taking this so long.
Well, why don't you give your example? We have our example about there's another big fight that we got into. This is probably like 2 years ago.
I think it was 4 or more. I think
2 or 3 years
based on
ago.
the kid.
Anyway, continue. So
3 or 4.
It doesn't matter. Nobody there cares.
You're contradicting me.
Sure, whatever you say, whatever it was, Mike. Sure.
All right. So, but I remember that Alicia came to me, or we had this conversation. She's like, we need to talk. And I'm like, I didn't know what it was about at first.
Yeah.
And it was about our kids and about technology and protecting our kids from porn and from all these different things. And it was really just weighing heavy on our heart. And as she was sharing this,
and I was scared.
You were scared, right?
I was kind of like seeing some things I was like concerned about. And I was kind of like, I knew that I wasn't the one to take care of it, with that. It's really Mike's prerogative, if you will, to discuss this with our teen boys.
And looking back,
yeah,
she did it great. Like there wasn't a flaw.
I don't always do things great, believe me.
It wasn't flawless, but it was so good in the way she presented it, right? But what I heard, she didn't say it, was that I wasn't being a good enough father, that I wasn't taking care of my kids, that it was my job. Because she did say, hey, I really think that it needs to be coming from you.
Yeah.
And which was 100% correct.
Yeah.
But what I heard was, you should have already done this. You're failing at it. And I became defensive. And so then that's when I pulled out and said, don't you realize all the things that I've done? And, how dare you tell me what to do? It moved from a mother's heart sharing a concern about her children to me taking it on as if she's, criticizing me or whatever, or attacking me. And I needed to defend myself. Yeah. And I moved from engaging with what she was thinking about at all. And all I had in my mind was, I got to get her off. I got to get her off. Yeah. I'm being attacked and I need to defend myself.
Yeah.
And that could, again, defensiveness can be passive or aggressive, meaning you can, and we'll get to it later, but you could kind of shut down or whatever. But in this case, it's the kind of aggressive protecting myself. And so I'm punching back and almost criticizing or trying to attack back. And at least what I perceived as an attack.
And so I think that, and in times where this has happened, and Mike gives this one example, but I feel like for me, I struggle with being defensive a lot, in very small ways. Like even if one of the kids, honestly, is like one of our boys was constantly saying, there's no food in the house, and I take that as a criticism. I take that as like a personal criticism, like
Attack
I'm not
you.
doing my job. Right. And there have been times when I've gotten really mad, at them for saying that and kind of like saying these exact things. Don't you realize how hard I work? Don't you realize that I'm trying? You're just telling me that I'm failing,
Yes.
Now Mike never says there's never any food in this house. He doesn't say that, but
because I also have a car and I can get up and do this.
You have your own debit card.
And she's doing so many freaking things for this family.
But there's other times when, in a conversation, if something comes up, I definitely can feel very defensive about and feel criticized and then like kind of get into that. And I think especially as moms, like we can say that, well, it's not my fault because I have all of these other things going on. It's not my fault because
you play the victim. I mean, no disrespect, but that's what
defensiveness does.
Yeah,
and I think the real antidote to that, and which is something that probably about a year or two ago, I had kind of discovered and really was taking to heart, is the idea of extreme ownership, which we've talked about on the podcast
this is the
before.
Antidote, right?
But so in a situation where there's a conflict, of looking back on that and saying, okay, what could I have done differently?
Right.
What could I have said differently? What action could I have taken to change this situation? Even in times when, even in that example that you gave, about like talking about the boys and my concerns about the boys, in looking back on that situation, even though Mike is being very kind right and said, oh, she did it flawlessly. No, I didn't. I certainly didn't. But even in that situation, I need to look at that and say, okay, what could I have done differently? Where do I need to repent? I need to look at my heart and say, where was there some not being sensitive to Mike's needs? Where was I being a poor communicator or expresser? I should have given him a heads up that I felt so strongly about this instead of coming in hot, and just flying in there, with these strong emotions. And so all of us need to do that. And that really is the answer. And I've often thought about this, is that saying, and I've said this to my children, saying it's not my fault is a statement of immaturity. If you find yourself looking back on your life or even saying that to your spouse, it's not my fault, never ever say that. That is not an adult statement, because an adult will say, you know what? Looking back on this, I could have done this differently. That is a sign that I want to grow. I want to progress. Right. I can look and see that there is something, even in the smallest of ways, that I contributed to this situation that I want to do better next time. It's really taking control. These are the things I control. I can't control the people around me. I can control me.
Yeah. And again, we know this is true in so many areas of our life, that by saying that doesn't mean that you're abdicating that the person did everything right, or that you're
Correct.
admitting that they are flawless in this.
You're not saying it's 100% your fault.
That's right.
But you're
You're owning your part.
Exactly.
You're owning your part, not the rest of it. And so don't take that on yourself necessarily, but own your part. And then again, when you start feeling that defensiveness creeping up, the early stages of it, stop and think of, again, almost all the time is, let's hear what they're saying more than even just what their words might be. Look deeper and see what's really going on, because what is happening, and this is true in criticism, it's as obviously is true in defensiveness, it's triggering something inside of us. It's helping, or it's causing us to react, because all of these on some level are either active or passive reactions that aren't good for healthy behaviors. And defensiveness, when you start saying, I want to engage, I want to look at my spouse, I want to understand their heart, I want to understand their feelings, I want to understand their perspective, like their even concerns in a new way. When
your spouse comes at you with those strong emotions, instead of being defensive, engaging would be like saying something to the effect of, I can see that you're really upset about this. Wow. Or even, wow, you're really angry right now, or you're really upset right now. Can you tell me more about what's going on? What's going on right now? And don't be afraid, because a lot of times that's why we're defensive, even thinking of defensive wall. We're defensive because we're afraid. So instead, engage their feelings, reflect those back, and be like, when you say what's going on, you're saying, I understand that there's a concern underneath these emotions. What is that? And maybe they're not even, sometimes you can get defensive even without your spouse having strong emotions. Sometimes it's just a comment like, oh yeah, I see the car's out of gas again, and I could get defensive about that. Well, I'm the one that always fills up the car with gas. I'm always take care. You can't do it one time, but I know we've mentioned this before. This is, but instead saying, oh, take extreme ownership. Yeah, you know what? I probably should have done that.
Right.
Or,
and then just move on.
I'm sorry.
Because,
exactly.
And in doing that, you're not keeping score. And we'll talk about that again and again, probably in these four. But it's like, it's this not a competition, so when we're in those situations, when we feel that defensiveness, we really got to cut it off at the knees, and we say, whoa. It's okay. And take our ownership. Don't worry about theirs. You can't control them. Take our part of the equation and speak truth into that. Okay.
Then the next, number 3 of the 4 horsemen, is contempt.
Yeah.
Contempt is really being in a place of superiority. Yeah. It's belittling the other person. It's saying, I'm better than you. I'm above you. I'm dismissing you. And, Dennis Prager, this talk show host that I listened to for a long time, when he talks about relationships, he says, and Dr. Gottman would agree with this, that this is that one of the horsemen, this action pattern of relationship that is very difficult to come back from.
Right.
It's very difficult to come back from, and it's actually the greatest predictor of relationship failure.
Yeah, this is the number 1, I believe.
When a spouse has contempt for their husband or their wife, when someone has contempt for their husband or wife, that you cannot progress in that relationship
until that's changed dramatically. Because again, what you're saying is that, and again, other ones alluded to this, that I'm right, you're wrong, but this is, I'm actually at a higher position. I'm more important. I do more. I have more value. I have more suffering or pain or work or that, all of that is that I am in a position that is looking down on you.
Yeah.
And again, that contempt can look almost like the victim in that woe is me and looking down, but it's primarily like you're belittling your spouse. You're going beyond just criticizing them. You're holding them in contempt. You're holding them in a position where they are demeaned and belittled, and that everything that you do is either more valuable or more important than they.
Yeah.
And
it reminds me of, I think about the difference between Satan, the evil one, and the Blessed Mother, right? Because Satan put himself, he said, no, I will not serve man.
That's
I will not. I
I'm
want to try.
above.
I want to be above them. I'm better. There's no way I'm going to do that.
Yes.
And then what did the Blessed Mother say? She said, "Let it be done to me according to your word." She said, "I will serve."
Right.
I will serve, and that's the attitude that we need to have towards our spouses.
Yes.
Is I'm going to receive you. I'm going to receive you. I am going to serve you.
Share this example of what you're.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've thought about and that I find like really concerning, and we've kind of talked about this here and there on the podcast, is different like TikToks and reels and things like that you see on the internet of wives and mothers talking about things like the mental load or the things that they do for their husbands or the things that they do for their family. And in a way, it's like either all the way or definitely coming up to the point of basically what you're saying is what I do in the family is more important than what my husband does. It's more important than what their dad does. So what I do as mom, carrying the mental load, taking care of the home, doing all of these things, that's more important than whatever it is that my husband does, whatever he is contributing to the family. That's nothing compared to what I do. And that's not really fair.
Well, it as a man, I can say Alicia's amazing. And she carries the weight of the world on her shoulders. And she has missed more than other, like the whole family's off. However, but if she comes off with that, or vice versa, if I'm the breadwinner or this or whatever, a level of superiority, that level of inequality, really, which is what we're doing, whether it's in financial, in matters of the home, matters of relation. It could be on any level where we take that I am greater than thou,
and
holier than thou, to be honest with you, even that,
That's so true, because I think there can even be a religious contempt of, well, I go to mass every day, or I pray the rosary every day and you don't, therefore I am above you. There can be that within spousal relationships as well. If people are at different places in their journey. And really the antidote to that is saying, when your spouse comes to you and you feel, and you're in your mind, you're thinking, this is a pretty small concern to the things compared to what I have. How can you see that differently?
Right.
How can you put yourself in their shoes? How can you, actually one thing it makes me think of is, even in that spiritual sense, is we were just mentoring a couple just recently, and they were at two different places in their journey. Yeah. And the husband was really kind of like really progressing in prayer and doing so much more. And the wife was looking at him saying, well, we're in such different places. It's hard to have unity with him. But what was so beautiful is that the husband was not at all contemptuous of his wife. He was just kind humble. This is just where I'm at. And I'm patient. And and that's where you're at. And it's okay.
And he accepted that.
Totally accepted her.
She felt uncomfortable.
Exactly, because she was seeing the disparity, and she was kind of like, I want what you have. Like, I want to feel that closeness
so beautiful
to God.
At the end of the day.
It was amazing.
And I'll just say this, after that mentoring session, she came to know Jesus on her own, not independent from him. He didn't coerce her, force her.
Right.
He just kept inviting without any belittling.
We directed her to a priest to talk to, which was a great conversation, and that priest really helped her. And so, but I guess that this is the antidote to that contempt, is really accepting the other person in their struggle and putting yourself in their shoes and being like, I'm going to see this from your perspective. Maybe to me, this is not a big deal, but guess what? I'm not you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put myself in your shoes and see, this is, even if I can't 100% relate, because we are men and women, and so we are two different body types or two different personalities, two different family of origin, all of those kinds of things. But we can still say, you know what? I'm going to try to see this, and I'm going to accept you, and I'm going to accept your concerns and respect the fact that you feel strongly about this.
Yeah. Well, and just that level of respect, the antidote is, the opposite of contempt is that respect, that admiration. And to be honest with you, place that person on a higher pedestal in some ways.
Yeah.
Because what you need to do, if you're caught up, because we often don't always verbalize it completely in the light, right? We don't always admit it to ourselves, let alone, oh, well, I don't say things that are contemptuous of them. Well, is it in your heart? Because that's a problem too, right?
Yes,
if you hold
so
them and say
true.
that, oh, well, they clearly don't do as much as I do around the house.
Yeah.
Don't give an inch to contempt in your relationship. Root it out. Look at it and say, and we'll give you some practices that to do at the end to really overcome really all four of these. But it is about looking at it and saying, okay, we are not only equals, I admire you.
Right.
And I want both spouses to always say about the other, she's better than I am. He's better than I am. Well,
Yeah.
we need to elevate each other because we need not just to not have contempt, we need to actually have that admiration and deep respect in our relationships. Because at the end of the day, what do we have? We are called to love like Jesus does.
Yeah.
And when he says, love your neighbor, who is your neighbor? Your first neighbor is your spouse.
Right.
But you're called to love your neighbor as yourself, which really, again, we talked about this in the other podcast, right? God is love.
Right. Go back and listen to that one. Get some inspiration.
but really, we're calling you to elevate your love to a level that this world really won't understand, because they want us to just be equals. And that's true. We are equals. But in love endures all things. Even if you have an inequitable relationship in the matters of faith or academic or professional or whatever it might be, you are more than equal in God's eyes. And you ought to pray that you can see them with the eyes of Christ. I mean, that's the real antidote. The antidote to contempt is saying, Jesus, help me see this child of God that you created, that before he or she was my spouse, they were your beloved son. They are your beloved daughter. Let me see with your eyes, Lord.
Okay, and then the last one, the last of the Four Horsemen is stonewalling.
Yeah.
Stonewalling or withdrawal.
Yeah.
And again, we were doing some mentoring with a couple who they came to us and they were like, and they painted this picture of their relationship, and they were like, well, like he goes and plays golf, and he chooses to go and do that instead of spending time with me. And that really hurts my feelings. And so I pull back. And then when he comes home from golf and he reaches out, I just kind of like ignore him and do something else. And he's like, yeah. And then when she does that, that hurts my feelings. And then I withdraw. And then I don't want to be near her anymore. And I was like, well, when you get into these fights or these arguments, and they were like, oh, no.
Yeah.
We don't argue. And it's, they weren't arguing. They were just withdrawing from each other. But they were, again, so beautiful, able to share with us, honestly, in front of each other. They would recognize it. And they were both totally committed to not doing this anymore.
Yes.
But just them sharing that, it was a perfect example of stonewalling, right? And just withdrawing and not engaging with each other. And I feel like this is just like the criticism, maybe more of a temptation for those who are like a sanguine or choleric personality. I feel like this is more of a temptation for a phlegmatic personality who doesn't like conflict, or a melancholic who feels
Deep,
things
and
very,
might
very
rude
deeply.
a little bit.
Exactly, who feels things deeply, but isn't necessarily able to put those into words immediately. I feel like that stonewalling or lack of engagement is something they would do, and it looks like a peaceful marriage, but it's really not.
Well, that's it right there. Like it's a peace at any price.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
like I would rather have calm and no fighting than actual authentic relationship. That's what we're choosing. What's Brene Brown always say, right? You've got to choose discomfort over resentment, right?
That's right.
And so it's looking at our relationship. Recognize that this is the fourth horseman of the apocalypse of your marriage. So that if you see that you're stonewalling, and stonewalling, again, some of these can be both passive and aggressive, meaning or active, in the sense that you could have a withdrawal that's obviously very passive.
How are you doing? Fine,
right?
Fine.
And it could be a passive aggressive, all.
Right.
But it's recognizing that it also could just be you're flooded. You're flooded with emotions, I believe, in this case, where you're just like, I just can't take it.
Yeah.
and you've allowed it to build up. You've allowed it to just overcome you such that you just say, I can't deal with you.
Yeah.
You say, I don't have the mental or emotional energy to deal with you. And again, that could also have some contempt marked in it, as well as withdrawing and stonewalling. But you're basically saying, you don't have access to my life. I am going to, again, somewhat defensive, but doing it in such a way that is kind of the passive aggressive, turning around and just saying, we'll just separate and be quiet.
And I think the antidote to that, because there is some truth to when you're flooded with emotion, that may not be a great time to engage. But the antidote to that is saying, you know what? I need to take a break right now because I am overwhelmed, but this is when I will come back.
And
we're going to take a 20-minute break. We will talk about this after I eat. We will talk about this after I take a nap.
Or
we'll
tomorrow
talk
morning.
about this after I take a walk, or whatever it is.
Right.
But you're not saying we're never going to talk about this. You're acknowledging where you're at, but saying this is when we're going to come back and engage because you are important, because this is important, and not just burying it down, shoving it down.
Yes.
And then just basically you want people wind up drifting apart. So I think that all of us need to become aware and attuned so we can engage with our partners, we can engage with our spouses in a really healthy way, and have that art of the pause, if you will. Like that.
I love that. I mean, because really that's what so much of our life will be so better if we had a little pause. Again, we talked at the beginning that this whole podcast is about communication in the frantic family, the busyness of a frantic family life. Pauses are good. They give us time to calm down, to collect ourselves, to think about what's going on, and re-engage properly.
So I'm going to call an audible here. We'll see how this goes, everybody.
Yep.
I really do not want to rush through our practical exercises and daily habits because I think these are really important. So can we just do this in the next podcast? Because we're at 53 minutes right now.
Well, I think it kept going while we paused. I don't want to contradict you, but I don't think we're not going to put examples in, right? We're just going to go through the instructions.
I don't know. Do you just want us to keep going and see? I don't know how much we paused before.
I don't know either.
Rory's going to have to cut all this out.
All right.
Should we just keep going and maybe it'll be a longer one and you can cut it up? Sorry, Rory. It's a lot of work for you, but you want to just keep going?
My default would be keep going because we're at the end.
It's for 15 minutes.
Or we can stop right now because then the people are going to be begging for more.
So 2 shorter podcasts, like maybe even if they're both 40 minutes.
Okay. All right. Now, we said we were going to give you the positives and the proactive parts.
Right.
We've gone on for a while. We want to take a pause, the art of the pause, right? I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow your wisdom and discernment on this, and we're going to share that next time. So tune in for the next episode. We'll go through some of the positive strategies and really unpack that a little bit more for us.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to go ahead and pray?
Okay. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the great gift of our marriage. Help us, Lord, become better communicators. And that's both in the sending and receiving, that we might give and take in the right way. Lord, you are the lover of our marriages. So teach us to be better lovers and communicators. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.